I'm sorry, ma'am. First class is for premium passengers. The words hit like a slap. For a moment, I wasn't even sure she was talking to me. My boarding pass was in my hand, my suitcase by my side, and my heart hammering so hard I could. Hear it in my ears. Look at the name on your list again, I said, my voice low but steady. Her eyes flickered down, just for a split second, before darting back to my face. That quick glance said more than any explanation could. She already knew I was on that list. She just didn't want me there. From behind me, a man's voice whispered, "Maybe she's lost." Another muttered, "First class? Seriously?" Each word was like a splinter, digging under my skin. "I assure you," I continued, forcing my lips into something that might have passed for a polite smile. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She hesitated. "Ma'am, we can't—" "You can," I cut in. "You just don't want to—" My tone wasn't loud, but it carried, and I felt the air shift as the passengers in line leaned closer, listening. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sharp, tight rage coiling in my chest. I slipped my phone from my purse. Thumb hovering over the record button. Her expression didn't change, but her shoulders tensed. "If you'll just step aside, we can clear this up." "Of course," I said. My feet moved, but my eyes never left hers. I stepped out of line into the space where everyone could see me. Into the space where whispers swirled, where people pretended not to stare. I pressed record. No raised voice. No scene. Just my thumb on the screen, my pulse in my ears, and the quiet decision settling into my bones. They were not going to get away with this. Because this wasn't about a seat. It never was. It was about the way she looked at me before she spoke. It was about the pause before "ma'am." It was about how my name meant nothing until it could be used to keep me out. And I wasn't stepping back into that line until the truth was captured and the whole world could see it. "You saw. What happened? Why didn't you say anything?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. The silence had been gnawing at me since I stepped aside at the gate. I didn't want to get involved. He said, eyes fixed on the floor. "Not getting involved," I repeated, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "You were standing 2 feet away. You saw her try to push me out of line like I didn't belong there." He shifted his weight, the cheap carpet muffling the scrape of his shoe. I figured maybe it was a misunderstanding. "A misunderstanding?" My laugh was short, humorless. "Do you think she'd have misunderstood if my skin was a few shades lighter?" He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me. The space between us felt colder than the air conditioning blasting from the vents above. People were walking past, their eyes flicking toward us and away again, as if our conversation was something contagious. "I thought you were different," I said, my voice quieter now, but the words still sharp enough to cut. "But you're just like the rest, safer in silence." His jaw tightened. "You don't know what it's like to—" "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't finish that sentence. You don't get to compare your discomfort to my reality." He swallowed whatever excuse he had been about to offer. The hum of announcements filled the gap between us, an artificial voice calling out gate changes and boarding groups, pretending the world was orderly. My phone buzzed in my hand. An unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the image that filled my screen, me, standing at the gate, the attendant's hand half raised toward me, her mouth mid-sentence. Someone had already captured it. I glanced at him, my so-called colleague, and then back at the photo. "Looks like some people do get involved," I said. His face paled, but I was already turning away, the sting of betrayal heavy in my chest, and the weight of proof burning in my hand. "So you had time to take a photo, but not to speak up?" My words sliced through the dim staff lounge like glass. He froze mid-sip, the paper cup trembling in his hand. I didn't what?" I stepped closer, keeping my voice low enough so only he could hear, but sharp enough that every syllable dug in. "Didn't think it mattered? Didn't think my dignity was worth risking your comfort?" His eyes darted toward the others in the room. 2 agents suddenly busying themselves with their screens, another pretending to scroll on her phone. None of them looked up. "It wasn't like that," he stammered. I was in shock. Shock. Didn't stop you from pulling out your phone, I said, feeling the heat rise in my chest. Shock didn't stop you from framing the shot, holding it steady, pressing send. That's not fair. No, I cut him off. What's not fair is standing in silence while someone is being humiliated in front of you. What's not fair is letting the whole room see and choosing to be a spectator. He opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. His shoulders sagged. Around us, the air was thick with unspoken things. Guilt. Avoidance, the quiet complicity that clung to every corner. My phone vibrated in my palm. A message banner lit up the screen. Marcus. You need to see the group chat. I stared at the words, my stomach tightening. My thumb hovered over the screen, my pulse drumming in my ears. The lounge noise faded into a blur. My focus narrowed to those 6 words glowing against the glass, promising that whatever I thought I knew, the truth was about to get darker. Marcus slid his phone across the table toward me. Read it, he said quietly, eyes flicking toward the door as if someone might burst in. I unlocked the screen and scrolled. The first line hit me like a slap. Guess she thought flying black meant first-class service. My throat tightened. They never saw me as a customer, I said, my voice low but shaking. They never saw me as human. Keep reading, Marcus urged. The next message was worse. Bet she's gonna pull the race card any second. Typical. Then a string of laughing emojis. My stomach twisted. I knew it was wrong, Marcus said, leaning forward. That's why I sent it. You need to know what they say when you're not in the room. I could barely breathe. How many of them are in this group? Most of the crew, he admitted, and a few supervisors. The words blurred for a moment as I stared at the screen, every message scraping against old wounds I'd tried to seal years ago. Jokes about my hair, my tone, even the way I stood when I boarded. They'd turned me into a caricature in their private theater. This isn't just about me, I said finally. It's about every passenger who looks like me and has to wonder if their seat came with a side of contempt. Marcus's jaw clenched. If they find out I sent you this, they won't, not yet. I handed him the phone. I'm not going to shout. I'm not going to give them the scene they expect. He frowned. Then what? I'm going to make sure this doesn't get buried, I said, my voice steadier now. But it's going to be on my terms, quiet, precise, and when it lands, they won't see it coming. I held the phone in my hand longer than I needed to, thumb hovering over the contact. My pulse was steady now, not from lack of rage, but from knowing exactly where to aim it. When the line clicked, I didn't wait for a greeting. It happened again, I said. My voice was calm, almost too calm. This time, I want the whole. Bored in the room, there was a pause. The kind of pause where you can hear someone's breathing, but not their thoughts. You're certain? The voice asked. I'm done being certain, I replied. I'm making it undeniable. Another stretch of silence. I could almost see them weighing the politics, the risks, the faces that would turn in their chairs. You'll have it, they said finally. The words landed like the opening move in a game they didn't know I'd already mapped. When? I asked. Soon, you'll be on the invite list. Not on it, I corrected, my tone sharper now. At the top, special guest. There was no objection. Just a low exhale, then the line went dead. I set the phone down and let the quiet fill the room. This was how power shifted, not with shouting in hallways or angry posts online, but with a name on the right calendar. And mine was about to be there. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and stale coffee, the kind of scent that clings to boardrooms where decisions are made about people without them ever being in the room. Today I was in the room. A man in a navy suit leaned forward, his tone smooth, almost rehearsed. We heard there was a misunderstanding. I didn't blink. A misunderstanding, I said slowly, is when you forget my coffee order. This was calculated. His smile twitched, just enough for me to see the crack in the performance. One of the women at the far end cleared her throat. We take allegations like this very seriously. You don't take them seriously, I said, my voice steady but slicing through the air. You bury them in policy language until they sound like accidents. A few eyes darted toward the man beside her. He shifted in his seat, his hand tightening on the folder in front of him. I was told you have evidence. he said. I pressed the remote in my hand. The projector hummed to life, casting the first message onto the wall. A string of laughing emojis followed by the words, "Did you see her face when I told her she was in the wrong line?" The second message appeared before anyone could speak. She looked like she wanted to cry. "First class, my ass." I didn't look at the screen. I looked at them. "That's your staff," I said. "That's what they think is acceptable." The next slide hit harder. A screenshot of the group chat header, the airline logo clear in the corner. No one spoke. Even the faint buzz of the projector seemed loud now. "I'm not here for an apology," I continued. "I'm here to make sure you understand. You can't erase me from this room or this conversation." The man in the navy suit finally broke eye contact, staring at the table like it might give him the words he'd lost. That was my cue. I clicked the remote one last time. The screen went black, but the silence stayed. His laugh was sharp, too loud for the quiet in the room. "It was just a joke," he said, throwing his hands up like that excused everything. I leaned forward. "Racism isn't a joke when you point it at a loaded gun or a boarding gate," a murmur rippled across the table. Two board members shifted toward me, their bodies angling like they were finally seeing the cracks. Others stared down at their papers, avoiding my eyes like contact might burn them. One of the older men tried to smooth it over. "I think what he means is, I know exactly what he means," I cut in. "And so do all of you. The difference is I'm the one who had to stand there while strangers looked at me like I didn't belong. You didn't have to feel that heat on your skin or hear the laughter at your back." His smirk faltered. "You're overreacting." My voice was steady, but my hands were tight on the edge of the table. "You called it a joke, but it's the kind of joke that teaches everyone else here they can treat me like a punchline. That's not harmless, that's permission." Silence hung for a beat. Then, from my left, a voice I didn't expect. "She's right." Every head turned toward the woman in the burgundy jacket. She pushed her glasses higher and spoke directly to the others. "We've ignored too much for too long. I've seen the messages. I've heard the hallway whispers. If we're going to call ourselves leaders, then we have to start acting like it." The room shifted. Not physically, but the balance, the weight in the air moved in my direction. I caught his eyes one more time. The mask was slipping and he knew it. The CEO cleared his throat. His voice softened like he thought kindness could camouflage guilt. "We'd like to extend a formal apology and offer compensation." I tilted my head. "You think this is about money?" His fingers tapped the table, a small, nervous rhythm. "It's a gesture, a way to acknowledge what happened." I let the silence stretch until it became heavy. Let him feel every ounce of what he was asking me to trade away. I didn't stand there, humiliated for a check, I said finally. I didn't get followed, questioned, and laughed at just to walk away with a direct deposit. "This isn't a ledger you can balance." He shifted in his seat, the fake warmth in his expression thinning. "Then what is it you want?" What I wanted had been sitting in my chest for weeks, sharp and waiting. I could almost hear my heartbeat over the hum of the air conditioning. "I want to oversee diversity and operations," I said. "Directly, reporting only to the board." The room froze. His jaw tightened like he was chewing something bitter. "That's a significant change," he said slowly. "That's the point," I replied. "You can keep paying for settlements, or you can start paying for change. Your choice." His gaze dropped, the confidence stripped from his voice. For the first time since I'd walked in, I knew exactly who had the power here, and it wasn't him. You can't just... His voice cracked under the strain. But the arrogance was still there, clinging like stale cologne. "She can." A board member cut in, her tone slicing through the air like a clean blade. "And she will." I felt the room tilt. Not literally, but the power whatever invisible current had been keeping me pressed into the defensive shifted in my direction. "You're letting her strong-arm you into..." He tried again, but his words stumbled over the low rumble of agreement around the table. "Enough," another voice said. "We've all seen the footage, we've read the reports. This isn't strong-arming, this is correction." My heart was loud in my ears. I didn't speak, not yet. Silence was my weapon now, and I was letting it do the work. "This isn't..." How our operations are run? The antagonist snapped, his palms flat against the table. That's exactly the problem, I finally said, my voice steady. And that's why I'm here. A murmur of assent moved through the board, not loud, but enough to rattle him. You're setting a precedent. Yes, the supportive board member said before he could finish. One we should have set years ago. He looked at me, then really looked. Anger, fear, and the dawning realization that the room was no longer his. We vote, the chairwoman announced, her gavel ready. Hands rose. One after another, no hesitation. No dissent, all in favor, unanimous, she said. My breath caught not in disbelief, but in the sharp, electric relief of winning a fight I'd been told I couldn't win. The antagonist slumped back, the sound of his defeat louder to me than any applause could have been. The microphones bristled in front of me like a nest of vipers. I could hear the cameras clicking before I even stepped up, the flashes like tiny bursts of interrogation. The airline's PR team stood just off to the side. Their smiles stretched so tight they looked painted on. This isn't just about me, I began, my voice steady but low enough to make them lean in. It's about the doors that slam quietly when no one's watching. A few reporters shifted forward, their pens scratching faster. I've lived those slams, I continued. Not the ones you hear, the ones you feel. The ones where someone looks you in the eye and decides you're less without ever saying a word. Behind me, I felt one of the PR reps stiffen. Good. This wasn't an isolated mistake, I said, scanning the crowd. It was a reflection. And if we don't like what we see in that reflection, we have to change what's standing in the mirror, a reporter called out. Are you seeking more compensation? I shook my head. You can't buy back dignity? You can't write a check to erase humiliation. But you can create systems where that humiliation doesn't get to happen. In the first place, there was a murmur, a ripple moving through the press line. I could feel it, an unspoken shift. This wasn't a scandal anymore. This was a reckoning. Someone shouted another question, but I was already stepping back. I'd said enough, as I turned. Flashes still popping, I caught the edge of one PR rep's whisper to another. We'll never live this down. An hour later, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications stacked on top of each other, mentions, tags, messages, clips of my words looping on every feed. One post caught my eye. She's not just fighting for herself. She's fighting for all of us. I stared at it for a long moment, letting the weight of it settle. For once, the noise outside didn't feel like a threat. It felt like an army. Marcus leaned against the doorway, his voice low but steady. You really did it. I shook my head, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. No, we did it. He spoke up when it counted. His eyes softened, but there was a flicker of something else, something that told me celebration had its limits. This isn't over for them, he warned. They'll smile in public, sure, but behind closed doors? They're already planning how to make you regret this. I felt the truth of his words sink in. It wasn't paranoia, it was experience. The kind of warning only another survivor of this kind of fight could give. And then I guess I have to be ready for the closed doors, too. Marcus stepped closer. Ready? You've been ready your whole life. This time, you've got more people watching your back. I studied his face, remembering all the moments I thought I was alone, when, in reality, voices like his were just waiting for the right moment to break the silence. I couldn't have done it without you, I said quietly. He gave a small, almost reluctant smile. You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. I let the silence hang for a moment, hearing only the faint hum of the building after hours. My chest felt lighter than it had in months, but there was an ache beneath it, a reminder that victory didn't erase the scars. This isn't where it ends for me, I told him. I'm done fighting case by case, moment by moment. The next battle is the system itself. Marcus nodded slowly, a spark of pride in his eyes. Then I guess we've got work to do. And just like that, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the opening line of the next chapter I was going to write myself. I didn't bother knocking. The door swung open, and there he was sitting where he once made me stand, silent and small. Not today, he looked up, his eyes narrowing, but I didn't give him the chance to speak. You'll be reporting to me now. The words hung in the air like a blade, and I watched them cut. He didn't flinch, but the way his jaw tightened told me enough. "That's unexpected," he said finally. Each word dragged out as if buying time. "No," I replied, stepping closer. "It's earned." His mouth opened slightly, but no defense came. Just silence, the same silence he'd used on me when I begged for answers. For fairness, for dignity, I leaned in just enough so he could see I wasn't bluffing. "You remember those days you made sure my voice didn't matter? They're over." His gaze met mine, sharp but hollow now. I held it, unblinking, feeling the shift his power unraveling, mine settling into place. "That's all," I said. Turning toward the door, the glass panels slid open without hesitation this time, the same doors that once refused to recognize me. The air outside felt cleaner, lighter. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. The folding chairs creaked as people settled in. My heart was pounding, not from fear this time, but from the weight of what I was about to say. I stepped up, looking out at their faces, some angry, some tired, some holding back tears. "If they can do it to me," I began, my voice steady, "they can do it to you. That's why we fight back." A murmur rolled through the room. Heads nodded. Someone in the back muttered, "That's right." I took a breath. They counted on my silence. They counted on me thinking it was safer to walk away. But silence isn't safety, it's surrender. A woman in the front wiped her eyes. An older man leaned forward, his hands clasped tight, like he was holding on to every word. "I'm not standing here because I'm stronger than anyone in this room," I continued. "I'm standing here because I refuse to be erased. And I'm telling you, every single one of you, you have the same power." Someone called out, "We're with you." Another voice followed, "All the way." I let the voices settle. This isn't just my victory. It's a warning to anyone who thinks they can push us down without consequence. When the meeting ended, people began to gather around me. Some just squeezed my hand. Others whispered, "Thank you." Then I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. I looked down to see a young black girl, maybe 12, her eyes wide but unshaken. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be like you." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, my chest swelled with something. That was equal parts pride and responsibility. I bent down so we were eye to eye. "Then promise me one thing," I said softly. "When the time comes, you'll speak, even if your voice shakes." She nodded, and in her eyes, I saw the future pushing forward stronger, louder, and unstoppable. I stood at the threshold, my hand resting on the cool metal frame. The same door I once feared would slam shut in my face now stood wide open. I let the quiet sink in, no guards blocking my way. No suspicious eyes tracking my every move. Just space that was mine to step into. This time, I thought. The door didn't just open for me, it stayed open for the next person. I could almost hear the echoes of all the voices that had been silenced before mine. I carried them with me now, not as weight, but as strength. Someone behind me spoke. Softly, "You going in?" I smiled without turning. "Yeah, and I'm not closing it behind me." The air felt different as I moved forward, lighter, freer. My shoes hit the floor inside with a steady rhythm that felt like a victory drum. No one stopped me. No one challenged me. That in itself was a revolution. I didn't glance back. Not because I was forgetting where I came from, but because I trusted that those coming after me would see the door open and know it was meant for them too. For the first time, I wasn't walking through for survival. I was walking through for legacy.